Hello and welcome to this Mythconceptions video from NET English. Today we're going to focus on this idea of Macbeth being a hero and really focusing on the start of the play. Okay, let's dive in with the Mythconceptions. So this is quite a common one again that we find, which is some sort of combination of these ideas that at the start of the play, Macbeth is a hero. That at the start of the play, Macbeth is patriotic, serving Scotland, and that Macbeth is innocent until he's corrupted by the witches and or by Lady Macbeth. Right, let's test this out. So, the argument for. So firstly, at the start of the play, obviously we see Macbeth fighting bravely in the battle, or rather we hear about him fighting bravely in the battle, and that is an important difference. He's described as brave Macbeth. Well, he deserves that name, we're told. He's like Valor's minion as he carved out his passage. He and Banquo were as cannons overcharged with double cracks, and those are all from the sergeant or the wounded soldier. He's called various things in Act 1, Scene 2. And it is clear in Act 1, Scene 2 that Macbeth and Banquo together save Scotland from several armies. Everybody at the start of the play seems to think that Macbeth is on some level morally sound, that he's a good guy. So Duncan, there's a whole range of them here. Valiant cousin, worthy gentleman, noble Macbeth, he calls him, both in Act 1, Scene 2. Ross in Act 1, Scene 3 calls him most worthy Thane. Banquo calls him worthy Macbeth. Duncan calls him worthiest cousin, there in Act 1, Scene 4. And then worthy Corder in Act 1, Scene 4 again from Duncan. So the word that seems associated with Macbeth more than any other in those first four scenes of the play is worthy. And that lovely semantic field of virtue we get: valiant, worthy, noble, worthy, worthy, worthiest, worthy. It's also clear that Macbeth says the right things to the right people. So when he sees Duncan in Act 1, Scene 4, and Duncan is, saying about how ungrateful he feels that he hasn't rewarded him already, Macbeth says, "The service and the loyalty I owe in doing it pays itself." Essentially, that being allowed to serve is payment enough. Even Lady Macbeth, who in theory should surely know Macbeth better than anyone else, sees him as having integrity. So she makes this comment in Act 1, Scene 5, when he's not even on stage: "What thou wouldst highly, that wouldst thou holily," which I think is a really, really useful quotation, over and above the classics around, being too full of the milky human kindness and so on. There's also the idea, of course, that Macbeth doesn't do anything wrong until after the influence of the witches in Act 1, Scene 3, and of Lady Macbeth in Act 1, Scene 5. So based on that, it seems pretty conclusive that at the start of the play, he is heroic, he's brave, everyone thinks so, he's done nothing wrong, he's this wonderful, virtuous, heroic man. So what's the argument against, then? Well, let's start with an easy one. Macbeth is unquestionably brave. So when he is disdaining fortune, he's fighting against fate, when he carves out his passage, when he's compared as being like an eagle, as sparrows, eagles, or the hare, the lion, when he's described as Bellona's bridegroom by the sergeant, all in Act 1, Scene 2. And that's the same sort of bravery that we do see at the end of the play. He's still facing an overwhelming military force against him. At the end of the play, he knows eventually that he can lose. He fights anyway. He knows he can die in that final duel eventually. Fights anyway. He's a brave guy, Macbeth. That's unquestionable. But he's also very, very violent. And even allowing for the standard of the time, violent beyond what is useful. When his sword smoked with bloody execution, when he carved out his passage, when he unseamed him from the nave to the chaps in terms of the traitor MacDonald, when he then fixed his head upon our battlements, having decapitated the guy, when he was willing to bathe in reeking wounds, all as the sergeant says in Act 1, Scene 2. There's a huge amount of violence here linked to Macbeth, and violence that doesn't really necessarily serve a purpose. Unseaming him, decapitating him. These are more about the display of violence rather than about the functional violence of killing a traitor. There's no mention ever from Macbeth about being loyal to Scotland. He isn't. He doesn't mention it, really. He talks about Scotland later on, but at the start of the play, it's never about Scotland. And even his loyalty to Duncan is only ever public, as in when he says the service and the loyalty I owe, and so on in Act 1, Scene 4. Or it's kind of self-serving when he says he hath honoured me of late in Act 1, Scene 7. So although Macbeth is very bothered about having killed Duncan afterwards, this is not about loyalty to Scotland or loyalty to the king, really, in terms of what he's doing at the start of the play. What he is motivated by, it seems, is by reputation. So in Act 1, Scene 7, he's worried about losing these golden opinions that he's bought from all sorts of people. He's also scared of failure. As he says to Lady Macbeth, if we should fail, he's scared of being discovered, of being exposed. That's what's kind of bothering him. As a side point, it is interesting that Macbeth has no problem interacting with witches, these servants of the devil, which is how to be seen at the time. Corruptive, evil, necessarily evil they are. That's how you define witches. So when he says, "Stay, you imperfect speakers, tell me more," he knows consciously he's choosing to interact with, to listen to pay attention to these servants of the devil, these evil people. The next point for me is a really, really crucial one. It's a really important one. It is Macbeth who thinks of murder. Nobody plants that idea. It's Macbeth who says in Act 1, Scene 3, "My thought, whose murder yet is but fantastical." He's the one who thinks of murder. The witches don't tell him to. They don't mention it. They don't even raise the idea of Duncan dying. That's not something they say. And then even Lady Macbeth, although she does discuss the idea of murdering Duncan, it's 2 scenes after Macbeth got there. What it links to, I think, in an interesting way, is the idea that violence is Macbeth's answer to everything in the play. He wants to become king, kill the current king. He doesn't trust Banquo, kill him. He's angry about Macduff running away to England, kill him. Now those things do change the way he views himself. So he says in Act 1, Scene 3, "Shakes so my single state of man." This idea that this thought of murder does disturb his sense of who he is, his secure sense of his own personality. But he is the one who comes up with it. He's the one who follows it through. He's a figure defined by violence. And it does link back to also the way we interpret his actions in the battle in Act 1, Scene 2. His brandished steel, which smote with bloody execution. It's not common to find the word steel used to refer to a sword. It's not impossible, it does happen, but steel is more often used to refer to a tool of some kind. So this idea throughout the play that we get, where he carved out his passage, he's a dead butcher by the end of the play. The implication on some level is it's simply that that's his job. That's what he's good at. Violence is what Macbeth understands, so he fights in the battle. It happens to be on the right side. As far as the Scottish are concerned, he is fighting, on behalf of Scotland. But that's not his reason for doing it. He fights on behalf of Duncan, but again, it's not his reason for doing it. It's simply someone doing what they're good at. He's good at killing, he's skilled with it, so he kills. As a final point on this, he's also more than happy to deceive people. "Stars hide your fires, let not lights in my black and deep desires," he says in Act 1, Scene 4. He knows he's got a dark side. He knows he has these black and deep desires and chooses to hide them from people. He is deceptive from very, very early on in the play. And in Act 1, Scene 7, when he says to Lady Macbeth, "False face must hide what the false heart doth know," it's interesting that the assumption is that Lady Macbeth is the one who teaches him in Act 1, Scene 5 to be deceptive. And that quotation everyone uses, "Look like the innocent flower, but be the serpent under it." But he has thought about deceiving people well before that point. He is deceiving people well before that point. Macbeth is not someone who is corrupted by Lady Macbeth. And really, maybe not even by the witches. What he is someone who has these witches and Lady Macbeth as catalysts for his actions rather than causes, perhaps. So where does this leave us with these myth-conceptions from earlier? Well, actually, in contrast to many of the previous videos that we've done, they're all sort of true and sort of not. Macbeth is a hero at the beginning of the play. Well, he's definitely heroic. I mean, you can't argue with that. He fights off huge overwhelming forces. Even when it looks like they're going to lose, he carries on, wins the day. So He may not be a hero at the start of the play, but he's definitely heroic. And that's true actually at the end as well. He's certainly brave. The second one, he's patriotic at the beginning of the play. Well, it's impossible to say for definite yes or no. It doesn't seem to be something that really motivates him. But of course, he does save Scotland. He does do something that seems to serve Scotland. So the impact is patriotic, even if his intention isn't, perhaps. And the third one, that he's innocent until he's corrupted by the witches. Well, he obviously has a dark side that he's aware of. He's deceptive, right? He's tempted by them. He's open to evil and so on. And he's very much self-serving, arrogant, prideful, and fearful also. And these are the motivating forces. But apart from the extreme violence in the battle, which is on behalf of Scotland, he doesn't do anything that actually perhaps we could view as problematic, certainly from the Scottish viewpoint, until he kills Duncan. So innocent on the inside, no, but on the outside, maybe. And the witches then are catalysts for his corruption. And Lady Macbeth also then is a catalyst for his corruption, a catalyst for his immoral actions, and increasingly immoral actions. So actually all three of them, they're not right, but neither are they entirely wrong. Well, I'd usually say, hopefully that's cleared things up a little, but actually really on this one, perhaps it's simply muddied the waters. So this question, Macbeth being a hero, kinda. Either way, hopefully that's been useful. It's certainly an interesting topic, I think, to discuss and to build a sort of a discussion around when you come to write about it in your exams. Thank you for your time today. Please do ask any questions you have of your teachers, ask the English directors if you're in NEC, and I will see you in the next one of these that we do.